So the first question is, why even need a philosophy? If the topic is how to live a good life, how to win in life, why start with a philosophy, and why not start with productivity tips? I have some good productivity tips. Let's talk about that. No, you start with philosophy. Why? Because philosophy, think about it this way. If you're an army, philosophy is the general. Philosophy is giving you the wide directions of the battle. Or, here's a better paradigm, a better way to frame it. I don't remember who said it, but philosophy is the CEO of your life. The CEO. What does the CEO does in a business? Gives the big decisions. Right? So when we talk about how to live, productivity tips are good, but it's not CEO level. Productivity tips is at the level of, I need the IT to help me fix something. The big decisions is at the level of philosophy. So the big questions. What are the big questions? What type of world do we live in? I mean, this is huge. The answer you give is hugely important on how you live your life. If this is a world, for example, ruled by a god, the way to win in life is to make sure I appease that god. Make sure I pray hard. Make sure I read the scripts. Or how do we know what is right and wrong? One way is to say, I'm going to put my mind into work, put my mind into effort. But if this is not how you know, then I need to do other things. Maybe in Greece, when you drink the coffee, you turn the cup upside down, and there's some people who are supposed they are able to read the coffee. In that case, if that's the way that we come into contact with reality, this is the way to go through life. So the answers you give to these questions, in other words, your basic philosophical principles that you follow are of crucial importance to your life, are going to decide how your life will go, are going to decide whether you're going to live your life in one way or in another way. So, what does objectivism say about all these things? Well, first of all, it tells you that there's only reality out there. There's no other world. There are no miracles. There's no divine intervention. And also it tells you that this world makes sense. That you can understand this world. That this world acts in predictable, more or less ways. And this is great news. Why? Because it means that this world can be tamed. That it can make sense. And this means that you can have success in this world. Imagine if you go to like in the films, a haunted house. You open a closet and you don't know, is there a crocodile gonna come out of this? And every time you open that door, something completely different happens. This house would be impossible to live in. So a world that would have no rules, no principles of physics, no answers would be given. It would be a world where you would be doomed to horror and fear, and at the end of the day, failure. So the fact that there's only reality, and we can make sense of it by using our mind, the things that we were discussing yesterday, this is again great news. This is the first step towards believing I can live in this world. This world can make sense. So the first thing then that we need philosophy is to give answers to the big questions. And if we talk about philosophy of objectivism, it tells you this world can make sense. This world is based on rules and principles that we can understand. So already we're at a good start. Okay, so if success is possible in this world, how do we go about it? Because till now we've only have the basis, which says that success is possible. But how do we pursue it? So number one, we need to ask the question, what shall I do in this world? how do I carry myself in this world? And again, there are many, many possible answers here. So for example, shall I cheat? Shall I live this world by trying to destroy other people and overpower them? Because if this is the way to go, I have to organize my life in a particular way. I don't know, get into a gang, have weapons, all these things. Or if some other philosophy say, I have to organize my life around serving other people, the philosophy of altruism, or the newest fashion, effective altruism. Then I have to take every decision in my life based on how I can help the biggest amount of people. So I wake up every morning and then it's like, how can I help 2 billion people in Asia, 1 billion in Africa, whatever. So this question, what shall I do, which is, what part of philosophy is this? The ethics is very, very, very important on how we deal with life. And what is the answer that objectivism gives? It tells you that you figure out what you do, again, by focusing on what your life requires to live in this world. So the reason Ayn Rand came up with her philosophy was not to, her goal was not to, one day she woke up and said, I'm going to create a philosophical system. She wanted to express, as a novelist, the life of someone who lives the most fulfilling life possible. She wanted to create what she called the ideal human being. And then the question came up, how does ideal human being live their life? And this is how she came up with the philosophy. So that's how she called the philosophy for living on earth, which is why, as I said in the beginning, you're in good hands. So the first thing you need to figure out is, what do I go after in this life? In other words, what are my
values?
What are my values? How do I deal with my life? And it has to be in terms of everything, in terms of how you find a partner, in terms of what is your profession, in terms of what's going to be your diet. So from the biggest questions to the smallest questions, you have to figure these things out yourself. You have to figure out, what does my life need? Which is what we were talking about yesterday in terms of being an independent thinker. The responsibility is on you. So the first then tip in terms of how to live a good life is, you have to think. You have to figure things out yourself. Let me give an example that I always found fascinating in terms of how you have to take everything in life very, very seriously. Have you heard the story about Steve Jobs and why for 8 years he lived in a house basically without furniture? It was the time he was very, very, very rich already, but he didn't have a sofa or furniture. He just had a bed, and the reason was he couldn't decide. He didn't have the time to properly think and decide, what sofa shall I get? He was so serious about everything that he liked that he said, if I don't have the sofa I like, then I cannot have a sofa. Now, this is an exaggeration, but I like this story because it shows you what it means to really, really take your life seriously. And remember what we were saying yesterday, how many people just drift. Not only in terms of what sofa they will buy, but in terms of even more important things. Like, what's their career? Who are their friends? What are the things they like? So I actually felt quite proud the other day because I figured out that I bought these AirPods for some very, very specific reason. And I was like, hey, I felt good about myself. I thought it was a good buy because I thought, well, I need this and this and this from my headphones, and I'll buy these. So again, this is a silly example, but you have to really think about what you want in life and what you need, and no one else can do it for you. And it's the starting point of everything. So think means choose your values, and once you choose them, then you do what? So you say, for example, I want to become that profession, or I really like that person, I want that person to be my partner. Then you have to do what? Okay, we thought.
Work hard.
This is usually where philosophers stop, I thought. Then you do what?
You have to work hard
On what?
on everything that requires to become the profession.
So you choose your values and then you act on them. You act on them. Philosophy forever has been completely snob about this. It's like, oh, it's about the world of ideas. Ideas are absolutely useless if you don't act on them, if you don't pursue them. That's why I hate this idea, platonic love. What does this mean? I like that person and I never tell them and I never act on it. What would it look like if we said, I want to have a platonic career. I want to be a doctor, but I'll just dream about it because that's the purest thing you can do. No, you act on it. Otherwise, your life is not fulfilling. Otherwise, you don't actually pursue your values. You have them somewhere there, and you don't do anything about them. So, and what's the number one thing you have to act on in terms of your life being long-term? It's your career, because it's your productive activity that makes sure that you can literally keep being alive, that you find your food, your shelter, and that you bring something to the table to exchange with other people in this economy that we live in. Again, which other philosophy talks about productiveness as being an issue of philosophy, as being an issue of morality? So objectivism is again very unique here. Ayn Rand had this quote that she says, productiveness is you apply reason to the problem of survival, which means when I work, I put my mind on it. It's something which is very important. It's something which is crucial. Compare this with today's popular view of work, which is at best a necessary evil, or thank God it's Friday. This life sucks. The thank God it's Friday life sucks for two reasons. One, because you spend the vast majority of your time doing things that you don't like. And the second reason it sucks is because you don't feel good about yourself, because the way you earn your living, literally, I like this phrase, I earn my living, is by doing something which you don't like or even you hate. Now, this doesn't mean that we don't find ourselves in situations where we don't like our job. I was telling you yesterday, those of you who stayed at the end, about me working at the toilets in a nightclub and how this was. But I'll tell you something, there was an element of pride there. Someone had to do it, but also it paid relatively well. I had the pride that I can support myself. And also, I knew that this is a step towards going somewhere. So even more than just saying, oh, I have a job, is what? Is saying, I have a purpose when it comes to my career. I know where I want to go and I'm trying to go there. What is Ayn Rand's three main values? Reason, which we explained yesterday, we spent the whole evening on why it's important. Purpose and self-esteem. Purpose. Why is purpose so important? It took me something like 8 years to understand it. Why is purpose important? Your central purpose, which means where your focus on where you want to go. And I read a book by a non-objectivist which made me understand it. There's a guy called Steven Pressfield who wrote a book which is very popular among the self-development world called The War of Art. It's a book that Joe Rogan was giving to every guest in his show for years. And Pressfield wrote another book which he calls Turning Pro. And this is what he says there. He says, he describes turning pro as you get serious about your main goal in life. You find what's your mission and then you go all in. And he says something in turning pro. He says, once you turn pro, when you identify what you really want to do, life becomes very simple. Why? Because for every major decision during the day or during the month or during the duration of your life, you ask a simple question. Does this help my mission, whatever that is, or not? So I have a very clear standard to clarify what I have to do. So a central purpose gives you what's your standard. Think about a big football star, say LeBron James or Michael Jordan.
It's basketball.
What did I say?
Football.
Okay, basketball. Football, let's say, I'll take Cristiano Ronaldo because I like him because he's very dedicated. If you're Cristiano Ronaldo, if you think about it, your life is very simple because you always know what you have to do. I have to train, I have to pick a good trainer, I have to find the right diet. I mean, these things require effort, but the criteria is clear. Is this going to help my career or not? Yesterday we were talking about the thousands of the decisions you have to take every day. And the question is, you take this decision based on what standard?
Your life.
Which is too vague though. But if you have a central purpose, you know exactly what is the direction towards which you go. Imagine, again, to give the example of the battle, where all our artillery shoots. Otherwise, not having a central purpose, you're in trouble. It's confusing. Shall I spend my morning playing chess, going to the gym, training in public speaking? There's too many options. Central purpose clarifies. So it's not easy to find it, but once you found it, your life becomes very, very simple. Very simple, because you know what you have to do. You mentioned yesterday Charles Fanny's happiness team. That's a program of weeks that it asks you this very simple question. What do you want to do in life? And it's not easy to reach that decision. But again, once you find it, then things are simple. Simple doesn't mean you don't put the effort, but it means you have clarity. Pressfield in his book has this captivating passage. It's a long passage. If you follow me on LinkedIn, I posted about it some weeks ago. And he said that his calling in life, his mission in life was always to be a writer. But he reached an age, I think he was late 30s or even later. And he hadn't accomplished that. And he says, at one point, I took a decision. He went to a cabin in the woods. He only had with him his cat and a typewriter. He was getting $20 from the bank every week, and he had to spend the week on them. And he said, I had a very simple decision. I'll either finish my first book, or I'll kill myself. That's what he said. Of course, that's dark, but I like the clarity of that. Either I do this, or my life has no meaning. And he said this was liberating, because again, I know exactly what I have to do. Steve Jobs' life, in some ways, was very simple. He had a vision, he acted on it. So, the second thing then to do is, to win in life, is organize your life around a productive endeavor, a productive mission, a productive central purpose, and act on it. But there's one more thing to do to win in life. Notice that till now, other people have not entered the scene. Because the first point was think, and the second point was and act on it in a productive way. But how do you deal with other people? So notice something very unique here again with objectivism. It's not until this point that other people enter the frame. Whereas in many other philosophies, this is the first question. Morality, particularly with morality. Morality is how you treat other people. So according to that morality, for example, Mother Teresa was a great person because she treated other people well. How was Mother Teresa's life?
Miserable.
How do we know? She told us. Her life sucked. And I think also the life of people around her sucked. because he wasn't trying to give them a hand and lift them up. He was just trying to pat them on the back on their pain. So here you have a philosophy that says you that the main point in philosophy is to figure out how to live your life. But at some point, your life includes dealing with other people. And other people can be of huge value in terms of having a relationship with them, working with them, getting value out of them. So how do you deal with other people? And usually the dichotomy that you're being offered, the false dilemma, is either you screw other people or you let other people screw you. Either you sacrifice for other people or you get power over other people. And usually the worst advice available out there in the world of Zen development is when it comes to relationships with other people. When it comes to romantic love, what is the usual advice? The conventional advice? Compromise. Oh yeah, that's Jordan Peterson all the time. You have to negotiate.
Become one.
Become one. Okay, that at least sounds. How do you
Find
do?
your half.
Oh, and even worse, people say how do they call it? My better half.
Yeah.
I would be really pissed off if someone tell the worst part. Why would I be with someone who is my worst part? Anyway. But usually what's the deal is that, love is selfless. Love is about giving. Love is about sacrifice. So let me ask you this. How would you feel if someone came to you and said, look, I'm so in love with you, I'm going to give you everything. Everything for you. My life will be for you. And you read a nice poem. I'm almost entirely sure that you would be appalled by that. You'd be like, ew. Why? Because then what's to admire in the other person? They're basically telling you, you're going to be my whole life. Okay, so what are you going to do with your life? So this recipe that says that, love is about giving everything up, I don't think it works. There's this thought experiment, I think it comes from Ayn Rand, but first I heard it from Yaron Brook. He said, imagine the scene of your wedding. You're at the church, and the man of your life comes to marry you. And they tell you, look, the reason why I'm marrying you is because I believe in sacrifice. I'm not doing this for me. I'm doing this for you. I'm such a good altruist that I'll marry you because that's what sacrifice demands. You would be appalled again. You should run away from the church before you do this major mistake and marry that person. Now compare this scenario with another scenario. The person you're about to marry comes to you and they tell you, I get so much value from you. You mean so much to me. You make my life so much better. That's a recipe for a good relationship. That's the proper recipe. Because it means that you are a person that I can look up to. You are a person that can inspire me. You're not an empty shell. If someone comes and tells you, everything for you, my life will... That person hasn't got much to offer you. You cannot look up to that person. So I think it's absolutely garbage, the advice that says that, you have to try to be happy and do things for yourself, but when it comes to dealing with other people, now it's about compromise and sacrifice. No, that's not a good recipe. What about the other alternative, which says, have power over other people? I hear it also often, that the way to deal with people is to don't be a slave, be a master. Who is the philosopher that
Nietzsche.
Yeah. Or even in self-development, I hear this. Like Andrew Tate is big on this. Like, you have to... Now, what's the problem with this? Do the people who follow this advice, do they usually have a good life? Think about mafia guys. I mean, it doesn't get more power than that. You have power of life and death over many people because you have the power of the guns. Do they live a good life? Notice that most of them, first of all, live a very short life. I was watching a documentary about the Greek mafia of the 90s, like the early days of the mafia. And it was shocking. Almost no one of them survived to the age of 40. They basically all killed each other. One family, one guy survived, and he would better not have survived because he saw his sons being executed by the other gang. Is it cool being Ceausescu? Not really. I mean, it's cool until it gets to the 21st of December of 1989. But I will tell you this, even if he would not die in the way he died, like, is it cool to be a Stalin? According to political historians, Stalin was the most powerful, one of the most powerful people in history. He had a life and death right over 300 million people. Is this a good way to go? Was Stalin's life a good life? Let me give you some examples. We all know, I mean, all historians accept, Stalin was basically at some point paranoid. He didn't trust anyone. There's one scene where it's when the Germans have attacked, and Beria, it was his right hand, and supposedly his friend. Beria shows up in his dacha, and Stalin freaks out, has a breakdown because he thinks that Beria has come to arrest him. Imagine, you see your best friend, and you wonder, is he here to have a chat, or is he here to arrest me and send me to my death? You know what happened to Stalin's wife, one of his many wives? She committed suicide. Why? Because she hated life with him. Imagine having this in your consciousness, because Stalin loved her. We know this from his bodyguard. He would go to the cemetery and cry over her grave. Imagine that you've lived a life which has led the person you love the most to commit suicide because he hates life with you. So no, living your life as having power over other people is a very bad recipe, very bad recipe. Have you watched the film Scarface?
Yes.
You watch half the film, you think, that's a good life. I'd like to be that guy. Yeah. Second part of the film at the end, no. And even if it doesn't get so extreme in terms of I'll kill people, or I had a friend who his philosophy about doing business with people, about doing trade is it's you or them. When you do a negotiation, a deal, it's you win or the other side wins. It's win-lose. How do you think he did as a tradesman? No good. He went from endeavor to endeavor, and they all failed. Because he viewed world as a zero-sum game. It's either I win or the other side win. No one wanted to do business with that guy. So where does that leave us? What is the proper way then to deal with other people? And the only answer is you deal with them as a trader. What does a trader do? What's the motto of a trader? Mutual exchange or mutual benefit.
Yeah. Being assertive in a certain way. I win, you win.
I win, you win.
Yeah.
That's the only way to deal with people. And I would say, I know this sounds very not romantic. This is the only way to have a fulfilling romantic life. I mean, there's nothing less romantic than to say, I'm going to be a trader with you. But think about it. Think about it. If you ever had a fulfilling relationship, what was the characteristic of it? You get love and you feel appreciated. You admire the person admires you. So trader doesn't mean, oh, today I paid for the pizza, tomorrow you pay for Uber. It means I get value from you, you get value from me. I feel respected, you feel respected. So it can be trade in spirit. So where does this lead us then to win in life? First, you have to think and choose your values. Then you have to act on them and act on values that are going to lead you to a productive life, because you have to produce to create the things that are going to keep you alive. And then you treat other people by enjoying each other's, enjoying the benefit of other good people who also think and who are also productive and who are also good people. And we mentioned Scarface, as Al Pacino said in another movie. That's all it is. So that's my 3 tips to win in life. Think, act on that, be a trader. Thanks.